Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Thank you for joining us today. Well, the chimes have gone off. It's the top of the hour, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar series on SaaS strategies. Today, we're going to be talking about contracts, specifically Sage Intacct contracts, and automating fixed fee billing and revenue recognition for SaaS and services companies. Um, let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So please use the Q&A function if you have any questions. In addition to our presenter, Beth Woodall, we have members of our LBMC tech team here to answer questions in real time. So please don't be shy. Look for that function in the Zoom webinar panel. We're offering CPE credit today, one credit. And to be eligible to receive that CPE credit, you must answer all poll questions. So we will be having 4 poll questions throughout the presentation. Please be sure to answer those when they pop up. Following the webinar, you will be receiving at least one, if not 2 emails. The first email will come from me, and it will contain slides from today's presentation, a link to the recording, a short survey, and we ask that you allow 48 hours for that to hit your inbox. Regarding the CPE certificate, if you are eligible, if you've answered all of those poll questions, we will submit that. And that is processed by one of our sister companies. And they ask that you allow up to 2 weeks to receive your certificate. If after 2 weeks you do not receive your certificate, you see my email there, dawn.westerberg@lbmc.com, and you can reach out to me and I can help you chase that down. In 2.5 years of scheduling these webinars, I've only had to search for 2, so they're very good at getting those out. So we're done with our housekeeping. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce to you our speaker today, Beth Woodall. Beth serves LBMC Tech customers as a senior Sage Intacct consultant, and Beth brings high energy and a depth of expertise. I've heard her present several times. You're going to enjoy her as a speaker. But she also brings a deep expertise in the areas of private equity firms, SaaS companies, and insurance companies. And she specializes in contracts, project costing and billing, and system integrations. So without any further ado, Beth, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dawn, for the introduction. I'm very excited that you guys are joining us today. As Dawn mentioned, contracts is one of my specialties. It's got a special place in my heart. I can't say that everybody would say that about contracts. However, that's how I got familiar with Intacct myself. Several years ago, I actually came to know LBMC because they did our implementation from QuickBooks to Intacct when I worked for a SaaS company, a tech startup in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we had contracts. And through our implementation and using the software, I kind of fell in love with it. And so here we are several years later, working for LBMC. And I get to teach you all contracts just like LBMC taught me contracts. So I hope that today you get a lot of information if you've been interested in contracts, if whether you're a current user of Sage Intacct or you are looking to move over to Sage Intacct and you're just very curious about what the contracts module can do for you. That's what we're going to go over today. As well as in 2025, I'll be doing quarterly webinars outlining different functionality of our contracts module and what we can do with it. So be on the lookout for those sessions as well. But today we're going to start off with a little bit of a kind of a familiar use case. Typically, what we see when we have contracts, we see fixed fee billing. So our learning objectives today is we're going to understand how to automate fixed fee billing in Sage Intacct. We are going to explore revenue recognition workflows for fixed fee contracts. We're going to discover the benefits of streamlined contract management, and we're going to learn how automation enhances your billing accuracy and reduces manual work. All right, so let's take a deep dive in. Let's talk a little bit about kind of an overall picture of what the Sage Intacct Contracts module, what it can do for you. So Sage Intacct's management solution is an integrated subscription that addresses the needs of the subscription business model. And it includes contract billing, contract usage billing, contract revenue recognition, as well as contract expense recognition. Now I'm going to go over a lot of information in these slides and in our demo. Don't be worried about trying to jot everything down or remember everything because you will get a copy of this presentation so that you can go back, review it, and even review our demo. So like I said, we've got a lot to cover, so you'll see a lot of information here. All right, contracts can handle over 300 frictionless billing scenarios. While today's session will be focused on fixed fee billing, keep in mind that this module can handle so much more. We're talking about usage billing. We can have usage billing with different rate tiers. We can see here we can have things with rate changes, including units, variable units, tiered pricing. It can also handle our project billing, so thinking time and materials, timesheets, percentage of completion, milestone, threshold, step billing. It's going to give us the opportunity to schedule invoices, have invoices generated on a specific cadence. We can set up billing policies, have those invoices generated automatically for us. We can bill in advance, bill in arrears, have consolidated billing. And then looking towards our contract management here, we can have event-based activation, cancellations, uncancellations. We can have co-term modifications, renewals. We can have specific renewal pricing options, custom renewal pricing. So we've got a lot that we can do within contracts itself. So, obviously, we're just going to touch just a small portion of that in our session today and even our sessions throughout the year. So Sage makes it very extremely easy to handle your various billing scenarios. When adding our items to our contracts, it is as simple as selecting the billing options you want, how much those items cost, and how you want to recognize the revenue. So over the rest of our time together, we're going to discuss some of the use cases we see frequently and how we would go about setting them up. But first, let's hit that polling question number 1.
Here is our first poll question. My organization has the following billing scenarios, and this is a multiple choice. So if you're doing more than one, you can pick that. So the options are fixed price, usage, time and materials, and then if you're not sure, there's an option for you. And just a friendly reminder, keep in mind if you are here for CPE credit, um, you have to hop in here and make some selections. All right. Well, Beth, here are the results of the poll. 75% of our audience is doing time and materials. 58% of our audience is doing fixed price. 50% is doing usage. And we've got one person who's just really not sure about what kind of billing they're doing.
Wonderful. Well, the good news is, like I said, today's session we're covering fixed price, but we are going to be covering some of those other ones in other sessions. So there's a little bit for everybody.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to go over and we're going to look at some of the use cases that we see frequently. All right, so our accounting team just received notice that we have a new deal that just closed, and we need to set up their contract within Intacct. So we've got Applied Biomics here. They've signed a 1-year contract that includes a software subscription billed monthly, but they also have support that we're going to be billing out quarterly. So let's take a look at how we would set that up in the system. All right, we've got our software subscription here. Now, I'm only showing you the billing portion of this contract line. We're going to look at the revenue portion and then the contract line as a whole in our live demo, but we're going to focus right now on just setting up the actual billing component for our line. All right, so we've selected that this is going to be a fixed price contract line. We're going to include it with every invoice. Again, very simple fields that we're just telling it how are we wanting to bill and when are we wanting to bill. So we're going to bill this monthly. I've entered a flat amount of $250 a month. This is what I want to bill monthly for their subscription. Notice that when I put in my flat amount, it is automatically calculating how many periods that it will have billing events in, and that is going to be based on my subscription start and end date that would be in the contract header. So I've got it going for 1 full year from Jan 1 to 12/31, 2024. I've got 12 billing events that are going to occur. And so 12 billing events at 250 a pop is going to total out to be $3,000 for this contract line. So just for my software subscription, I'm looking at $3,000 of revenue. Now looking at our support, we're going to set it up very similar, but we're going to make a little bit of a small change here. We're going to set this for fixed price again, include with every invoice. Instead of monthly, we're going to choose to do this quarterly. Still putting in that flat amount. This is how much I want to bill each quarter. So I've got $500 here. It's able to determine how many billing events will occur between the start and end of the contract. So we've got 4 billing events that will occur. So 4 billing events at 500 a pop. We're looking at $2,000 for our contract line. All right, so it's set up very similar, but the adjustments that we're making here for this one in particular was just the fact that we were doing quarterly invoicing instead of monthly. All right, so when we put in that contract line and we put in all the billing information, the system is going to generate a billing schedule for each one of your lines. This is going to give me the opportunity to see when all of my billing events are scheduled, what amounts they're going to be billing out. And I'm also going to be able to see the service period start and end date. Now, that service period start and end date is a new feature of Intacct. It released last year, later in the year. This is something that a lot of clients have been asking for. An Intacct release that I believe in R4. This is going to allow you to have your service periods flow over onto your invoice so that way when you send your customer their PDF of their invoice, they can see exactly what service periods each one of their items cover. Now notice that my software subscription, I've got my 12 billing events. And on my support, I've got 4 billing events. And my service periods for my support is covering 3 months, where each one of my service periods for my software is covering just a single month. So as I bill out this contract, I will have some months where my invoice is just going to have one line. It's just going to have that software subscription. But every quarter, I'm going to have an invoice that has 2 lines on it because it's going to pick up not only my software subscription monthly cost, but I'm also going to bill out that quarterly support. So Intacct Contracts is really great about being able to have multiple contract lines and they can all be set up differently, and you're just having to generate a single invoice that covers everything that you've got on that contract. You don't have to worry about, creating these manually. You're not having to worry about invoicing each of these individually. Contracts gives you the flexibility and the capabilities of having it all on a single contract, making it a unified presentation to your customers. It's easy for you and it's easy for your customers. All right, so once we get those contract lines in, let's take a look at our contract as a whole. So here on our contract, in our contract header, I can see that we've selected our customer, Applied Biomix. I've got all of the information to who we're going to be billing and shipping to. I've got my contract name, so this is their 2024 software and services subscription. We've got both of our contract lines here. So here's our main module subscription. I can see when this line is covering. So this is covering the full contract term. I can see how much we're billing, how many periods we're billing, and what our total for the line is. You'll notice that I also have hyperlinks to both my billing schedule and my revenue schedule. And I can easily see if my contract lines are set to renew. All right. Now it's April of 2024, and Applied Biomix have been so happy with us that they've decided to purchase an additional module. All right, so we've got an add-on mid-contract. Most of our customers, when they have the contracts module, this is a very frequent thing. We have customers who decide to upgrade, to purchase additional services, to, have any change orders. So we can handle that easily within Intacct. All right, so their new sales order comes through on 4/16, and we need to prorate the billing for the first month and then bill full amounts monthly till the end of the contract. All right, so let's see how we're going to put that into the system. All right, we're still going to select fixed price as our billing method. We're still including with every invoice because this add-on is just an additional component that they're adding to their monthly subscription. Now, because this is a mid-contract add-on, I'm going to go ahead and select this option right here to prorate partial billing periods. What that allows the system to do for us, it's going to help us because we're not going to have to do this calculation. It's going to look at the line start date and it's going to say, okay, I need to prorate that first month based on my line start date. I'm still going to be billing monthly, so that's perfectly fine. I am putting in how much my new amount is going to be for this line. So this is $75. Notice that my duration is 8.5 periods. That's because it's picking up that partial period based on my line start date. So my total amount for this line is now $637.50. All right, when I look at the actual billing schedule that it created for me, again, I'm seeing that partial month right there, that 37.50, and it's going to put that computation memo over to the side for the system to say, hey, this is why and how I came up with this amount that we're going to be billing out. So you can see here it's going to label it saying between, 4/16 and 4/30. It's a partial period of 37.5 for 15 days with a daily rate of 2.5. Now, the rest of the contract term, we're going to have $75 a month, just like we told it to. Now, do keep in mind that this new service period functionality within Intacct, it does have a little bit of a workaround that you will have to do sometimes. Because I set this line to start mid-month, the service period start and end dates, it is just calculating a full month of service period based on that starting date. Now, it's going to carry that all the way over till the end of December. So you've got just your partial at the end of December. If you do not like the way that that service period was structured and you want to change it where, hey, that first billing event covers from 4/16 through the end of April, you can adjust all of these service periods on their own. That's kind of the nice thing about your billing schedule. You're able to change your billing schedule to meet your needs. So just because the system said, hey, this is what our scheduled billing date is going to be, and this is how much we're going to bill out on this date, you have the full capabilities of going in there and making changes. So I could change the date for each of my billing events if I wanted to. I could change the amount that I'm going to bill out on each one of my invoices if I want to. However, the caveat to that is that the total for the line must remain unchanged. So I could move my billing events up to a single billing event. I could space them out differently. Um, it's just going to build a default schedule for you just based on the information that you put into the system. But you may have a circumstance where you need to make some changes to that. And Intacct does give you the functionality to make those changes. It's not so rigid that you can't make those adjustments. So it really is customizable for you as far as your schedules go. And again, so you can update your service periods to reflect accordingly. All right, along with the new module comes a one-time setup fee. For this particular item, we want to make sure that we set two important items in the header. Since this is a one-time fee, I do not want my item to renew when my contract renews as a whole. So I'm going to make sure to uncheck this renew box right here. Secondly, in this use case, I want to make sure that I don't recognize the revenue until I know the setup is complete. And then I'll recognize all of the revenue in the month it was completed. And we're going to look at revenue here shortly. So I'm going to mark my delivery status as undelivered. We're going to set ourselves up for success when it comes to the revenue side, just by marking that status as undelivered. Now, looking at our billing setup, we're going to select fixed price again. Because this is just a one-time fee, I'm not selecting include with every invoice, and this time I'm just selecting one time. Now, before I was entering just a flat amount, but you don't have to do it that way. You can enter a quantity and a rate and let the system calculate that out for you. So you have, multiple ways to get that information in the system. But here I'm just going to put in a quantity times a rate, and that's going to tell me how much my line overall is going to be. All right, so now that we've added our co-term lines onto our contract, this is what our contract looks like. So here we are, our contract overall value has now changed to 6637.50. So we can see how we've got our new lines as well as our original lines, and we are able to see the difference between them because down here I can see my line start date. Here's my original two lines, and here's my add-ons. So very easily can I see the changes that occurred on this contract as it goes through its traditional life cycle. I also love the feature that we are able to see over here to the side what lines are going to renew and which ones aren't. So I can easily see, hey, this setup, even though it's on this contract here, I'm not having to worry that it's going to pick up when the actual contract renews. All right, so before we move on to revenue recognition, let's take a quick poll.
Okay, here's our second poll question. Which of the following applies to your organization? My organization is currently using Sage Intacct, but looking to upgrade to the contracts module. We are looking for a new ERP system that has contract functionality. We'd like to keep our current ERP and add contract functionality. And then we've got the option, I'm not sure. We'll give you a few moments to look at the options that you have, but please make at least a selection so that you qualify for CPE credit. All right. Well, we've got 22% who are using Sage Intacct that would like to upgrade to contracts. We've got another 22% who are looking for a new ERP system that has contract functionality, and 11% are looking to keep their current ERP but shopping for some contract functionality. And the remainder aren't sure.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's keep on going here. Now, we've looked at the fixed fee component. We've looked at how we would set up the billing for that, but let's turn our attention over here to revenue recognition. Let's see how we can recognize revenue for our various billing lines on our applied biomix contract. All right, here we can see for contract line one, which is our original software subscription, we have selected to straight line the revenue across the full contract term. So this is a very common use case where you're just going to take the total for the line and you want to just disperse that evenly across the contract term. And so that's what we see here. So we can see that all of the revenue events, so this is our revenue schedule over here to the side, all of our revenue events happen to actually coincide with the same amount that we are going to be billing every single month. So every month at the beginning of January, I am, billing $250. Every month at the end of the month, so at the end of January and in February, we're still recognizing the same amount. So we can see how they can coincide and kind of have some of the same cadences as your billing schedule. Now, overall, my revenue recognition is 3,000. I'm also billing out 3,000. That is the two things that tie your billing schedule and your revenue schedule together. That's it. That is just that they will equal the same at the end of the day. However, they do not have to be on the same event schedule, if you will. They can have different events and different frequencies. So we'll see that as a good example here on contract line two. We opted to bill this one out quarterly. So I've only got 4 billing events that are going to occur for contract line two. But I've opted to straight line the whole revenue so that all that $2,000, I want to spread that evenly across the life of the contract. So we can see that the system has already calculated what that equates to so that I can see here across all 12 of my periods, we are spreading that out evenly. And it's taking care of rounding. You're not having to worry about, making sure one is a penny or so less or more. The system is just calculating that for you. So we can see here that we're either going to be recognizing 166.66 each month or 166.67 each month, just depending on where it falls in the schedule. All right, for contract line three, we're still opting for that straight line. It's important to note here that while I'm selecting straight line in these use cases, as it's the most common that we typically see, especially with fixed price, you are able to build many revenue templates within the system. I could have easily opted to use something like daily recognition, milestone, percent of completion, and others depending on my specific needs. Because my contract line is starting mid-month, we can see that the amount to recognize for the first month in April, it's prorated, based on that the start date of my contract line. But the rest of my events throughout the rest of the contract life are the full monthly recognition. All right. Now, remember on line 4 for our one-time setup fee, I said we needed to set ourselves up for success here by marking this item as undelivered. I've selected straight line for this particular line, but I've set it to just be recognized over a single month term. It's kind of the nice thing about this straight line template here. A lot of times when people think straight line, they think a full 12 months, but that's not necessarily the case. Your template is saying, hey, I want to divide this evenly between my start and my end dates. So that could be a single month, 2 months, 5 months, whatever the case may be. You're deciding that based on your start and end date here, and the system is then going to disperse the amount total. So I'm just selecting it to be for 1 month. But because I have selected this to be undelivered, my actual revenue will not post until I mark this item as delivered. And when I mark it as delivered, it will make the revenue recognition occur upon delivery. So here I can see that it says my schedule status is pending delivery. I am seeing some scheduled posting dates, but the system is actually not going to allow me to do that until I mark my item as delivered. And when you mark an item as delivered, you're going to be able to specify the date of delivery, and the system is going to adjust your schedule without you having to lift a finger for it. And then at that point, all you have to do is recognize the revenue. So we're able to basically, I like to call it set it and forget it mentality, right? We're able to set up all of this on one single contract. We've seen how we can have different billing schedules, different revenue schedules. So we're able to meet the needs for this particular customer. We're not having to figure out how do we put this into the system, how am I going to bill this every single time? I'm not having to remember when there is something I need to bill out, when there's not something I need to bill out. The system is going to set it for you. It's really making this very easy on you and your team. So let's reflect on our objectives again and kind of see where we stand. So we want to understand how to automate fixed fee billing in Sage Intacct. And so we've looked at 4 examples of fixed fee billing requirements and how to set up each. This by no means is all inclusive. We've got multiple different fixed fee scenarios we could have, but we've just kind of looked at some of the more common ones that we see. This is going to allow us for easy invoicing without having to manually key in our items each month, and it ensures we are billing the correct items for the correct amount. We've also explored different revenue recognition workflows for our fixed fee use cases. We've seen that our revenue schedules do not have to have events on the same cadence as our billing schedules. So before we continue on any further, I just wanted to check in and see if we've had any questions come through because I know we've covered a whole lot there. Any questions?
No, Beth, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Just a reminder, folks, if you do have any questions, please use that function and we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions as far as contracts go. So feel free to speak up. And you guys are very, very lucky because we have some phenomenal contract resources on the call today serving as additional panelists. People way smarter than I am. So feel free to ask any questions that you have. All right. So we're going to dive into a live demo within Intacct because we've seen a lot of screenshots. But we're going to look at our environment. We're going to look at some templates, and then we're going to check in on our friends over here at Applied Biomix now that it's 2025 and see where they stand. But before we do that, let's hop into poll question number 3.
So poll question number 3 should be on your screen right now. The contracts we manage often require tailoring to specific client needs, adding complexity to the process. This is pretty simple, yes, no, or I don't know. Give you a few moments to respond to that. And boy, the overwhelming majority, Beth, are saying that yes, they often require tailoring to specific client needs. So thanks everyone for participating.
Yeah, I mean, we see that quite often. It's it's a bit rare for us to have customers who tell us, nope, we have kind of hard and fast rules as far as our contracts go. A lot of times we see where, you know, they white glove these situations, and every customer is different, and they have special contracts for certain things, and that's great. You know, what's wonderful about Intacct is we are offering these functions and these capabilities that you're going to be able to handle that. You know, sometimes when I know when I was in accounting, sometimes when I would get, you know, SOW signed, everything, I would think, oh my goodness, how are we going to set this up? How are we going to do this? But honestly, when we were using Intacct and using contracts, it just made it so much easier for us. All right. So I mentioned just a second ago that we are going to dive into Intacct itself, take a look around at the environment and look at some templates and then check in on our friends. So I'm going to open up our Intacct environment here. All right, you can see that we are in Intacct. If you are already working within Intacct, you might recognize the fact that typically when we log into the system, we log in at the top level. It is important to note that with the contracts module, you will want to make sure that contracts are entered and maintained at the entity level. That's because you could have multiple contracts for different entities. They just work best when you operate at an entity level. So I'm going to drop down to our US level here. Excuse me. And we're going to take a look first at some templates within the system because we want to look at our revenue templates. So I'm going to go over to contracts and then I'm going to go over to setup here and we're going to go look at revenue templates. Now, Intacct does provide a few default templates already within the system, but we're able to build out additional revenue recognition templates, and we're going to look at some other templates as well. All right, so when we're creating a revenue template, all we have to do is just give it a name, assign it a description, and then we're going to look at our recognition methods. So we have straight line, daily rates, quantity base, predefined percentages, project percent complete, and task complete. Now, some of these are applicable to usage. Some of them are applicable to, you know, project costing and billing. Really, when we see fixed fee, a lot of times we see things like, you know, just straight line or daily rate. But we're able to define that here. Now, when we talk about automating components within Intacct, revenue recognition is something that we can automate should we choose to. So you see here we have a default posting type where we can select whether we want the revenue to post automatically or if we want it to be manual. I will tell you a lot of the time, clients at least like to start things out when they're using contracts at the beginning, manual. And that's because it's going to give them the ability to still walk through posting that revenue each month, making sure they feel comfortable with how it all flows. And then typically they then begin to transition their contracts to an automatic posting of revenue recognition. And what that's going to allow you to do, it really is hands off. The system is going to post revenue on those scheduled dates. You don't have to worry about remembering and, you know, going in and doing that each month. It's going to do that for you. But then we also have some who have a combination of both. So it's not a one size fits all situation. You're able to really define and make it work for whatever your specific use cases are. Now, another great feature of contracts is that we have the ability to put contract lines on hold. And you can put a contract line on hold for both billing and revenue. So when we have a contract line that goes on hold, maybe let's say they're mid-contract and you know, they're they might need to cancel, right? Your sales team is working with them to see if, what if there's anything you guys can do. Maybe they're disputing something that you've invoiced. If you need to pause your revenue recognition, you can place that contract line on hold. When you resume the contract line, when you resume that revenue schedule, you have the ability to tell it how to handle any revenue that should have been posted during the interim. So we've got the options to do a catch up one time. So anything that I might have missed, if I have my contract line on hold maybe for 2 months, it's going to say, okay, you had two revenue events that should have occurred between the time you went on hold till the time you resumed. If I select catch up one time, the revenue that I should have recognized during that interim is going to move to the first available period that we're going to be posting. Catch up distributed would take the amount that we missed in the interim and evenly disperse that amongst the remaining events on my revenue schedule. And then walk forward is going to take the remaining schedule, including the items that I missed in the interim, and move the whole schedule forward accordingly. So the two events that I would have missed, it's going to move my schedule forward 2 whole months. So my revenue could potentially finish posting long after my contract line was completed. All right. So let's also look at our renewal templates. So one of the things that we talked about contract management within Intacct is that we are able to easily handle that contract life cycle that we typically see within the system. So going from that initial contract, spanning the life of that contract with our invoicing and our revenue recognition. And then we come up into our renewal phase. And obviously, we hope, our clients renew. We're able to tell the system how and when we want our contracts to renew. And we do that by selecting a renewal template. So let's take a look at those. All right, so we're going to make this custom for us. We're going to pick everything that's applicable to what we want to see. You do not have to have just one renewal template. You can have various renewal templates, and again, make it custom to specific clients or to specific, divisions, whatever the case may be. You can have as many as you want here, and you can assign them on each of your contracts individually. So this is not necessarily, again, a one size fits all. We're being very custom here. When we put in our information for our templates, we are able to decide how do we want this to renew. When it does renew our contract, do we want it to renew in progress or do we want it to renew to a draft state? So you have that capability of if you select it to do a draft, you can go ahead and make some changes if you want to. Some people like to see it just sitting out there in a draft state so that, maybe they've got an SOP where their accounting team reviews everything before the contract is actually posted, or maybe it's their sales team reviews it. We can decide when we want it to renew. So it's going to show here, I've got 10 days before the contract end date. That could be 90 days, right? We could do 60 days. It's entirely up to you all how you want to do it. Just because I set my contract to renew 60 days, 90 days, 120 days before the end of the contract, that does not mean that my renewal is going to start before my other one is ending. It's just putting that out there already for you so that you can maybe make changes, see that it's coming, but it is going to have the appropriate renewal start date. So you don't have to worry about that piece. We can define what our default term is here. And then how do we want our pricing to be handled when our contract renews? So again, this is going to automate this stuff for you, make it very seamless for you. So with our renewals, we have the ability to say, hey, I don't want to make any changes to my pricing. Hey, I want you to use a billing price list as my renewal prices. I want custom pricing, or I could even just say, hey, across the board, we're going to do a percentage markup. Maybe I want, you know, every year I want the customers to increase their price by 5%, 3%, whatever the case may be. We're able to build that into the renewal template. And so when my contract renews, if I say, hey, we want a 3% increase, we're able to see that contract renew on its own, and the prices will automatically increase by the percentage that I have specified. Now, one of the other features that I really love about renewal templates is we've got the capability to have, as when the renewal actually triggers, it's going to send an email for you if you want to. Now, sometimes you could have that send out to your customer. To be very honest with you, I don't have a lot of customers who actually choose that option. Instead, we see more people focused on using this feature right here, send to internal recipients. Just like with your invoices and you set up uh, custom email templates to go along with your invoices going out of the system, you are able to customize this internal email that this trigger sends to you. It could have components such as the contract, the amount, the renewal date, various components. You get to define how you want that to look. But it is really nice to have those because you can have it maybe sent to your sales team. Maybe it's to your accounting team, whatever the case may be, you can have that send if you wanted to. All right. So let's go check on our friends over at Applied Biomics and see how their contract is going since we are in 2025. All right. So we can see here that the system renewed our contract for us automatically. Now remember, our contract, our original contract, yeah, it seems higher than what our renewal contract is for. But remember, that is because we had that one-time item on our contract. We can see it here when we look at that original contract. Here's that setup fee. It is not set to renew. So when we look at our renewal, we can see that automatically did not feed over into this new renewal contract. So again, it makes those things easy. I don't have to remember to drop it. The system is going to drop it for me. Now, I do want to point out one fact here. I love the fact that when a contract renews within Intacct, it automatically establishes this parent-child relationship. As your contracts continue to renew year after year or whatever cadence that you have them set, because I've got this set for 1 year. However, I could have a 5-year contract, a 3-year contract, whatever the case may be. When our contracts continue to renew while those customers are with us, we will continue to see a parent-child relationship established. I can easily track all of the changes that have occurred across this customer's life cycle with us. So again, when this one renews at the end of this year, we'll see another child appear right here linked to this original contract, and we're able to see everything all tied together. And so every time it renews, it'll put a dash and another number after it. Again, making that contract management component a lot easier. All right, so we're going to look at this particular renewal, and let's say that I forgot to add a custom renewal amount to my support. Now that we've got that additional add-on subscription, we want to increase our support level. So I haven't billed this out yet. It's just January. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my contract line 2 here. and we are going to increase this. All right, I'm going to show you something that I really love, and a very wise person once told me when she was training me, contracts is a choose your own adventure. When you are selecting your billing method, when you are selecting your frequency, the fields you have available to you will change. So if I had this as quantity based, well, it won't let me change it right now, but you can see how this now alters. It's going to give me fields that are applicable to quantity based items. When I change this to include with every invoice, if I change this to monthly, annually, quarterly, those are going to change. If I change this to one time, my field options are going to change. If I choose to use a billing template, so this is, we didn't go over billing templates, but here you can make custom billing templates to say, I want to bill on a specific cadence that I want to define. I've got different fields available to me. It is a choose your own adventure, but Intacct does make it very easy to understand what you need to select and when. So again, I'm just going to go back to include with every invoice quarterly. We're just going to increase this to $550 a quarter just because of that new add-on. My amount here, I've got it prorate, like I've got it straight lined over the life of the contract, not having to do anything else. And I'm just hitting save here. All right, so we've made that adjustment. My line has now increased. I'm going to save my contract and let's go bill for January. So I'm going to go over to contracts. I'm going to generate some invoices. Now, I'm just going to pick one, but understand that you've got the capability of defining who you want to invoice for, when you want to generate them, creating what we call invoice policies, which means you set a bunch of filters, you save your invoice policy, and it's going to help you to run those automatically. I'm just going to select that we're going to bill out for January. And I'm going to filter just for my specific contract that we had. So here's our renewal contract. I'm going to hit preview. All right, down here I can see exactly what I'm going to be invoicing for. If I select my number here, I can see all the lines, what we're going to be invoicing for, and how much. I can see them all right here. If I didn't want to maybe bill out one of these, I could uncheck it and hit save, and then it wouldn't bill out that particular line. But we're not going to do that. We're going to bill out everything, and I'm just going to hit generate invoices. And that's it. We've generated the invoice. I could go over here to order entry now and look at our transactions and say, oh, okay, we're going to now, here is our invoice for January. And we could then invoice that out, send that out to our customer. When I go and I look at my actual contract and look at our billing schedule, for each of our lines, you will then be able to start seeing when it actually posted. You can see that it was billed out. And then you will have a hyperlink to the actual invoice. Again, making it very seamless for you to do any type of research that you need. Now, as far as revenue recognition goes, let's go over and let's recognize our January revenue. Now, I have these set to manual, but if I had them to automatic, they would automatically post for me on the date specified. We're going to look at January. Again, I'm just going to specify my contract so we don't have a whole lot of other stuff filter in here. Hit preview. And here's my revenue that I need to recognize for January for all three of my lines. Gonna select those three lines and hit post. System's going to do this offline. You're going to get an email when revenue has posted. It'll tell you how many entries were successful. If you had any issues with posting any of it, we can always go out here and view the run. we can see that these are queued. And when we go out here to our contract, when those entries do post, we will be able to see the posting here. It'll tell us our actual date, and it will post a link to the actual entry. So it does take it a second to run offline, but just like with our billing schedule, where we were able to see the date and have a hyperlink to the actual invoice it created, we will get the same thing on the revenue side. We will see when it was posted and the link to the journal entry that it created. All right, there is so much more that we could cover when it comes to contracts. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And when we have contract discussions, I could talk for hours on it. I really do truly love it. I think it is a well-built module, and I think it can enhance and put a whole lot of efficiencies in place for your teams. So, again, we're going to be having more discussions about contract functionality throughout 2025. I would love for you all to attend if you are so inclined to. All right.
Well,
With
great.
that, let's go over to poll question 4.
Well, great job, Beth. We've spent a lot of time taking a look at contracts, and you probably have questions about how that, what that means for you. If you would be interested in having a discussion about Sage Intacct and the contracts module, we'd love to set up what we call a lunch and learn all about you, where you can invite members of your team and we'll bring our Sage Intacct and contract experts to the lunch. We can serve lunch virtually. We've got a service for that and really talk about your specific needs. And so that's what my final poll question is about, is whether you would like to schedule a lunch and learn all about you. And we'll give you a few minutes to do that. And what we'll do is, for those of you who are indicating that you would like to have a lunch and learn, we will reach out to you by phone and find a day and a time that works well for you and your team and get all of the logistics set up for lunch and then be available to answer all of your questions. So thank you for your input. And as I mentioned, we'll be getting in touch with those of you who have indicated you'd like to get together for a lunch and learn all about you. And Beth, you can close this out.
All right. Well, I hope that you all have been able to see how Intact Contracts really does make things easy for us. We're able to see how contracts can help you automate your fixed fee billing, how we can easily recognize revenue, ensure that billing accuracy, meaning we don't leave dollars on the table. We reduce manual work and overall streamline the contract lifecycle. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this session. I look forward to doing these additional sessions on contracts this year. And I hope that you'll join us. If you have any questions at all, like Don said, please feel free to reach out to us. We love what we do and we want people to love Intacct just as much as we do. So please reach out to us if you do have any questions. And then this is just a look at our upcoming webinars. If you are a current Intacct client, you can see our hot topics coming up in February. And then our next session that I will be doing for SaaS strategies will be in April. And we're going to be talking about that usage-based billing and revenue recognition. I see that a lot of our people on our call had usage-based. So that would be very beneficial to see how Intacct can handle usage-based.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. Thank you to all our attendees. We're so glad you joined us this midday, and we hope to see you at a future event. And thanks to our panelists for jumping in and answering questions. Thanks, everyone.